Hey everyone, it's been 2 minutes and I haven't been raped, but I dare you to try and prove it. Hi, I'm Diana Davison. I want to talk briefly about a few things that basically have to do with batshit crazy females. 1. There's a phenomenal new book called The Campus Rape Frenzy, which is, to date, the most important book exposing the devastating social problems of feminist rape rhetoric. It's impeccably documented and, frankly, terrifying. 2. I want to talk about an extremely important Canadian court case going to appeal on March 14th in Toronto, Canada. It's important because it's going to be addressing the most radical feminist written decision in history, and it gives us a view of what will happen if feminist jurisprudence takes over our courts with their brave new world. 3. I'm going to argue that the kangaroo courts currently installed at universities to deal with sexual assault are the model for hybrid courts and changes for sexual assault laws in the criminal system. So why should you care? The model for campus tribunals goes like this. Premise 1. Women almost never lie about rape. Based on this presumption, the accused should not be given full access to the accusations against them, so they don't even know what they're charged with, because this would traumatize the victim. Not being allowed to cross-examine the accuser. Again, this would re-traumatize the victim. Not being allowed a lawyer. Or if the lawyer's there, the lawyer's not allowed to speak. Essentially, they feel that lawyers' presences would turn this from a fact-finding mission into just a game of words. Not being allowed time to unearth evidence of innocence. Well, that leaves the victim in limbo if you give the accused too much time to defend themselves. Not be given access to exculpatory evidence. Evidence of innocence, because that would be victim blaming. It's irrelevant. Not be granted the right to remain silent. The accused must testify. They reverse the burden of proof. He has to testify because unless he does, then, he's presumed guilty. But it's a compromise. In return, the guy is only facing being ejected from school and branded a rapist, but he won't go to jail. If this goes into hybrid court, they just have to pay money. Tried on a balance of probabilities, not a reasonable doubt. The victim is obviously most likely telling the truth, so the reasonable doubt should go in their favor, right? Premise 2. Any behavior by a woman after a sexual assault is normal. So anything a woman says or does, no matter how contradictory, it's just another sign that she was in fact raped. If a woman acts like nothing happened, that's a sign that something obviously happened. That a woman might act like nothing happened is also a sign that, nothing happened. That's not relevant because she says something happened now, so her claim is more important than evidence. Premise 3. Rape or sexual assault trials can only be fair if all judges are trained to believe the accuser, usually a woman. Unbiased judges are actually biased against accusers by doubting them or scrutinizing them at all. If you ask them to answer questions, even if they're not that difficult, you're just victim blaming. So we got to have specially trained judges. The ultimate summary here. It's better to convict innocent men to ensure that no guilty men go free. That is the doctrine of the brave new world. This is not a dystopian fantasy. This is the current situation on university campuses, and it's the testing ground for demands being made of the proper legal system. They're chipping away one by one at all of the rules that protect men and grant them a fair trial, and they're fed up at how long it's taking. So legal feminists are demanding a whole new hybrid court system so they can move from just finessing the existing accountable system to just installing a whole new thing from scratch. The case of R versus Ururyar in Canada, and one of the important small elements people might overlook with this case. Last year, Ontario Judge Marvin Zuker wrote a 178-page verdict that was rambling, incoherent, and irrational. It was a denunciation of the patriarchy and historic violence against women. Judge Zuker will probably retire before he can be brought to a board of inquiry. He's obviously lost his mind, and I think he knows it. This case is important because it is actually the most feminist judgment ever written in history. His incoherent judgment is important because this is what the law will look like if hybrid court suggestions are followed and installed, or if feminist legal precedents keep advancing the way they have. Men will have no access to a defense, and any evidence of consent will either be disregarded or turned into evidence of trauma. The small detail that I want to make sure no one misses. The complainant in this case, an activist named Mandy Gray, hired a lawyer named David Butt, and the accused was ordered to pay costs in a criminal trial for Gray's own choice to hire her lawyer. Now, there's a reason to not provide complainants in sexual assault with lawyers. That's because the Crown is supposed to be trying to find the truth, not trying to get a conviction. So if we allow complainants to get lawyers to coach them on how to testify, then instead of telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, you'll get what I see more and more every time I go to a courtroom, and that is complainants spouting rhetoric instead of being candid and honest. Now, I've had the delight of speaking with lawyer David Butt about his approach to sexual assault advocacy, and he told me that many women need hybrid courts because some of them have psychological troubles and just can't move on from a negative sexual encounter. Mr. Butt thinks that he's a therapist. He's not. He's a lawyer, and the courts should not be used as therapy. Give you a moment to let that sink in. Mandy Gray most certainly does need therapy. Of that, I'm certain. She's fucking crazy. She's currently spearheading a group called Silence is Violence, and I personally know at least 3 members of her group are false accusers. Another one even admits she's never been assaulted. She's just suing her university as, Actually, she's a bit of a terrorist. That would be Glynis Kirchmeier. The combination of these activists with members of the legal profession like David Butt, who says he's going to intervene in the Ururyar appeal to argue why his legal services are actually a form of therapy, and I look forward to that one, well, it's a combination that isn't accidental. One of the fun bits from the Ururyar trial is that the submissions by defense that Mandy Gray's accusation was the action of a rejected woman, well, that was called a rape myth. Yeah, okay, right. Well, even feminists acknowledge that at least 2% of allegations of sexual assault are false. Now, I don't actually need to give you motives for false accusations of sexual assault, but I'm going to. Starting next week, I'm going to present a multitude of false accusers to show you how it happens. And hopefully you'll realize how often. If you want to stop these bastards, well, support the Lighthouse Project. I'm currently helping 14 people defend against false accusations in the criminal system and in the university kangaroo courts, which are actually just a prototype for the brave new world of feminist lunatics. Also, go buy a copy of The Campus Rape Frenzy, link below, and keep a puke bucket nearby. One more thing, I'm flying to Toronto to be in court for the Ururyar appeal in March. Donate on PayPal to help me pay for the ticket. I'll be there in support of a man falsely accused by Mandy Gray and wrongfully convicted. Act now and make sure Mustafa Ururyar is Mandy's last victim.